Welcome to Unshakeable, the podcast that shares stories of resilience in the face of life's toughest challenges. I'm your host, Siviwe Shakes Soizwapi, and each week we dive into real conversations that not only inspire but help us grow, offering insights on how to navigate our own struggles with strength and purpose. Because resilience isn't about being unbreakable, it's about standing firm when life tries to shake you. This is Unshakeable. Let's get into it. Hello, Unshakeable family. We are back at the Wagen Southern Sun Hotel in Stellenbosch. Just want to thank them for always allowing us to use the space. I want to say thank you to Aquabox as well, and Mountain Falls Water. It's always a privilege just to have the water on set and enjoy it during our episodes. Today, we have Mr. Universe in the building. Today, we have a really special and incredible human being, hails from the KwaZulu-Natal region, and now lives in Cape Town. Went to Stellenberg High, and then is now into pageantry and modeling. As I said, he's Mr. Universe, and we're gonna chat more about that. I'm really excited and looking forward to it, because how he got into it was something that is it's a story that I'm really keen to share with you guys. So today on Unshakeable, I want to invite and welcome Ntando Lurwengu.
Shakes, thank you for having me. Thank you for
joining, man. I'll get into the pageantry and just chat more about all of that, because that's the gist of everything on today's episode, because of how unshakable the story is and the journey. But growing up in KZN, that first 7 years with your gran, I think let me start off by saying A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Your gran played a integral role in that first 7 years. I like the story about how she didn't want you to leave the house without reciting the ABCs. And I mean, yeah, I also like the fact that she wanted to raise you because to give you stability in life, which was the gist of everything. What role has she played in your life, particularly in that first 7 years?
So, yeah, I mean, my grandmother, she was an incredible woman. Again, and how that came about is I was born 2 months premature, and then so obviously I was born on the 8th of June. I was supposed to be born on the 8th of August. So I ended up staying in hospital for a period of about 2 months, and around August, or the time when I was supposed to be born, the doctor started having conversations with my parents and saying, okay, fine, do you want to keep him here longer, or do you want to take him home and you can put him in someone else's care? So my grandmother's thought process was, well, I'm not going to have a stranger raise umzukulu wami.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a period of about a year or two, and then I would go stay with my parents. But the dynamic was, my parents moved around a lot at that moment in time. My father was in, a special unit of the police, which is no longer exists, and they would stay in different parts of the country. And my grandmother just thought, well, you know what? He's still young, I'll look after him. So it was supposed to be a year or two, just until I was old enough to interact and do all those kinds of things. It ended up being a period of 7 to 8 years. On the point of ABC, so a lot of people like to think, I speak well because I went to good schools and all that kind of stuff, but I always tell them that I speak well because of my grandmother. So what she would do is, before I started going to preschool, she would tell me, you're going to recite your ABCs, and she would say, until you've recited your ABCs, you can't go play outside. And it's not like it was a thing of I'd get to H or I and I'd be like, no, you can go. She'd be like, you haven't got to Z.
You're not going anywhere.
So now I must read this whole alphabet, I must recite it, and if I don't get to Z, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. So what that ended up doing is that, before I even got to preschool, I could already recite my, A to Z. And yeah, it's something that really was instrumental in terms of just you know, my ability to read, my ability to write. I remember in the early years of school, you know, I used to excel in reading and writing and spelling and things like that. And it's all because of her, because I already had that foundation where, well, you're not done reciting, my boy, you can't go outside. And my friends are like, hey, go Ntando. He's like, no, Ntando, it's a piece. And it's like, right now. So yeah, I mean, she was an incredible woman. You know, again, she passed away in 2021. May her soul rest in peace. You know, due to COVID-19. And I mean, again, I even remember on my journey to Mr. South Africa, and like she used to call me every single day, like every single day. And she'd be like, oh, Mtanab, you know, says we're praying for you, and all. Like, I'm not even, without fail, she used to. And it was about a week and a half before the finals, you know, again. And I still remember 2 weeks prior to her passing away, I went to go visit her in hospital. It was a very emotional, you know, experience. And yeah, I think it was quite a tough one, you know, in terms of just, she never got to see that moment. And yeah, but I think again, for me, it was just to do my best to obviously make her proud, you know, just appreciate the time that I got to spend with her and the invaluable contribution that she made to, you know, the person and the man that I'm becoming today.
Incredible. And that says a lot, you know, like it all comes together for me knowing you, the type of guy that you are, and the values that you put forward. It makes sense now that you explain the type of woman that she was, and definitely instilled that in you. Your old man, I think, or your mom was from Ematatiela.
So my dad was from Ematatiela, Miss Joga, and my mom was from KZN.
So are you Zulu or Xhosa? Let's get that out of the way.
Okay, so you know, I'm half Zulu, half Xhosa, but traditionally, you know, because again, traditionally, it's you are what your father is.
True.
So I would say I am Xhosa, but generally, you know, I'm half in terms of, but again, you know, even I can understand and I can speak is Xhosa, but you can hear Uti I speak is Xhosa and Zulu.
You lean more.
You see what I mean? Like, you know, I speak Xhosa with the Zulu accent. I mean, I think when I moved to Cape Town, people used to pick that up. They're like, you're not from here. You're not from here. You don't speak Xhosa like we speak Xhosa. Yeah. You see what I mean? So, yeah, I'd say traditionally I'm Xhosa, but again, you know, I lived in KZN most of my life. I never lived in the Eastern Cape. I think the only time I became, you know, accustomed to interacting in Xhosa was when I moved to Cape Town. I mean, yes, I'd go visit family in Matatiela, you know, my grandmother on my paternal side when she was still alive, and my grandfather, etc., but I was still very, very young. And then obviously when there were, you know, family events, then I'd go, but it wasn't like a constant thing, you know, KZN visiting, especially with my bond with Ukoko. Like, going to Durban was every December thing. I mean, to this day, December, I know, even though I don't get to spend as much time as I used to be able to, I know maybe for a week and a half, I'm in Durban with the family that side. But again, I've got lots of love for my dad's family. They are my family. And, you know, when I do get to see them and we do get together and interact, you know, it's always a great time.
Yeah, I think you that first 7 years you grew up with the Gogo in KZN, but your dad was or is from Ematatiela and Xhosa. Let me jump straight to the question then of when you get married, because we actually spoke about it now, that those are aspirations. Are you gonna have a traditional Xhosa wedding or a traditional Zulu wedding? I think then we'll know, okay, this is a Zulu guy or Xhosa.
Hey guys,
on the spot.
No, you're putting me on the spot. You're putting me on the spot. You know, I believe I'll do something which is unique, in the sense of, obviously it will be, because there's no conclusion that I'll marry a Xhosa or Zulu. I mean, I could marry a Sotho, a Tswana, I don't know, you know. So I think it'll be a conversation of how do I integrate and include, you know, both sides of my family. Because, you know, my Zulu side, very integral, my Xhosa side integral as well. They both made a meaningful contribution to the person that I am today. So I believe it would be a conversation of how do we integrate and include both sides.
I'm sorry, that is such a mystic universe. But I love it. I won't take it away from you.
But I think that's what actually you're actually fortunate to. It's a good problem to have, you know. And I mean, it probably, not probably, I think it definitely teaches you so much, you know, because you've got both sides and it's different perspectives and different insight as well. So the first 7 years was with Ugogo and in the KZN, and then you then moved down to Cape Town to reside with your folks. After the 7 years and then finally being with your parents at 7, how did that shape your identity and just stability in life?
I'd say it was quite an adjustment, if I'm being honest, because I went from staying, you know, in the township with Ukoko, and life there is very different, you know, Guatabega, and I moved to Cape Town, Durbanville, to be specific, to live with my mom and my dad, and it's like, okay, this life is different here, you know. It's quiet all the time. There's not people playing in the streets throughout, you know, the day. I don't just say, well, I'm going to go play outside with my friends. We play soccer in the streets, etc., etc. Here, everyone is quiet. Everyone does their own thing. They stay within the confines of, you know, their space in terms of their yard and their house, etc., etc. But I believe it really helped me to, you know, understand that, you know, even though we're within the same space or country, etc., etc., you know, people live in two different worlds, if I can put it that way. And that really shaped the things that I became passionate about, you know, and I've become passionate about later on down the line, because it really taught me that, for example, with me, the opportunity that I've had access to, the things that I've been able to do, you know, the place that I've been able to go, it's not because I'm better than anyone else from Guatabega or, you know, Matatela or wherever. It's just that I've had access to more opportunities than they've had, and, you know, I've done my part and I've made the most of those opportunities, and it really just shaped me to understand that, you know, sometimes people don't get to certain place in life not because they're not capable, it's just that they don't have the opportunities. And again, it really also you know, drove me during my time, you know, as Mr. South Africa to, you know, find ways and interact with people and organizations in terms of how do we make certain opportunities more accessible, you know, more especially within the area of education, if I can put it that way, because again, you know, I had my parents who were in a position where they were able to sacrifice to ensure that I could go to good schools and I could get access to education that I got access to, but not everyone else has that opportunity. And again, you know, education, it's a key. So the thing with the key is that you can use it in a door to access somewhere, you know, to get somewhere, if I can put it that way. And you know, education, it really just, it helps you to think, it helps you see the world differently, if I can put it that way. And I mean, that's why when I had that time, I remember sitting down with someone I consider to be a mentor of mine, and I was like, you know what, look here, I want to do this, I want to start an NPO, etc., etc. And again, you know, another thing that taught me is that coming from an environment where there wasn't access to a lot, I came into a space where there was more access. And what that taught me is that you don't know everything. It's very important to always seek, you know, knowledge and information and guidance from people who are further ahead of you, who've been there, done that, because that can save you a lot of trouble and can prevent you from making a lot of mistakes. Yes, you'll still make mistakes, but, you know, it's things which people can guide you past. And it's the mistakes you'll make are just mistakes of, again, not everything's going to go perfectly when you give it a go, because that's just life. You know, you learn from them, you keep on going, and even in the point of when you make mistakes and you're like, oh, okay, fine, I don't know how to move this forward, I don't know, you can always then go consult someone and say, rather than breaking your head, they can be like, okay, no, do this, do that, and then based on that advice and their experience, you can move forward more seamlessly and get to the result or the outcome that you're planning on getting to.
Nah, awesome. And you actually answered a question that I immediately had about your campaign, which was when you were Mr. South Africa, and that was why education. Then you really touched onto it, but we'll get more into that campaign and what you were trying to push and why the focus was education. You can elaborate more on that. So now you're in Stellenberg, and did you do any sports there? Before I get to the story of the pageantry, did you do any sports?
Okay, so
because they're actually doing well these days in rugby.
Yeah, they really are. So before I got to high school, I was a soccer guy. And then I get to Stellenberg and they don't have soccer. So I'm like, hey, I've got options, but the options are rugby, cricket, hockey, and I'm like, hockey. If I'm gonna score something in a goal, I'd rather kick it with my legs, so I'm not gonna do that. And I was like, cricket. I played cricket in primary school. The batting on the side was fine, but now when I have to stand for an hour and a half in the outfield, I'm like, I'm not gonna get sunburned for no reason. I'm just gonna stand there. So I was like, okay, let me try rugby out. I'm grateful for rugby, to be honest, because being someone who was in soccer, I was this skinny. So when I started playing rugby, I had to make a plan, because I looked at some of those guys and I'm like, I don't want to break myself there, so I'm gonna need to start making a plan, working hard in the gym, gaining some size, gaining some strength, etc. So at Stellenberg, I played rugby. Yeah,
no, even in the space when I got exposed to you and met you early, I think it was just after COVID. You've picked up a bit of it's so the gym program is working. Now I want you to tell us the story of, because this is what's fascinating for me, this whole thing. The guys just thought there's a pageant in school and we are gonna get Ntando. Maybe they thought, hey, this guy's good looking or whatever. His build is different to all of us. Maybe it might do well. I don't know what they were thinking. But tell us about the story where they jokingly said, Ntando, you need to enter this pageant, man.
Okay, so Mr. Stellenberg, it was the high school pageant. So what happened is, we were gents, jocks, whatever, it is what
gents,
it is.
Gents
big gents. So how it worked is, at that time, I don't know how it works, but you had to get nominated to become a part of it. So what happens is they announce it on the intercom. So there was announcements in the morning. I think it used to be between 8 and 8:15 in the morning, or early in the morning. And then what happened is we were in one of our class, I believe it was English class, if I remember correctly. So the Jeds, the guys that sit at the back are always the guys, the jokers. They were the jokers. So for some reason, on that day, I was like, let me go sit in the middle of the class. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, we're about to start class now. And they start announcing names. I'm just like, it's just another day. They're going to announce what they're going to announce. And they say my name. So I'm like, and obviously they're looking at me and I'm like, hey, boy. And then, and I look to the back, I'm like, these guys. And then obviously they're laughing there at the back. And again, it was a big joke. It's like, Ntando's going to be, walking the runway, all that kind of stuff. And then I won. Then it wasn't so funny. So yeah, that's how it came about. It was literally, my friends who thought it would be funny if I took part, and then ended up taking part, and I won.
Is it something you ever thought about in your life before that point?
To be honest, no. I'm just a gent. To this day, I think, again, I love my sports. I love chilling on a Saturday afternoon with friends, etc. It was never really a thought where I'm like, someday I'm gonna do this.
Yeah. No, that's now you see why it's so fascinating for me. But I think what's more fascinating is the fact that you decided to do it. You said yes to it. And not only said yes, you smashed it, went and won it. What makes you think that something that you never even gave a thought to, but it's probably something within you, the person that you are, that made you do well. What would you say that made you just excel in that task at hand?
I would say, maybe it comes from that thing of my grandmother. I was like, you know what, if you're going to do something, you're going to do it properly. If you're going to do something, you're going to give it your all. And my parents really instilled that as well, when we moved and we started living with them. And something I saw with my father, for example, a lot of people ask, man, you're fairly driven, you're diligent. When you do something, you really give it your all. And without even realizing it, there's a term, some things are taught, some things are caught. I'd always observe, my parents, but my father especially, everything he did it full on.
Yeah.
Full on. I'd see the man every single day, for work. He'd wake up at a certain time. And again, he was already, and he'd do that consistently, if I can put it that way. And I believe that's something growing up that was instilled in me, where it's like, whenever you get an opportunity, going back to opportunity again, is like, there's other people who would want to be in that same position as you. So again, don't necessarily just do it for yourself, but do it for the people that would like to be in your shoes as well.
Yeah.
And while you're in that position, make the most of it and ensure that, you can obviously leave a lasting impact while you have that opportunity.
Yeah, awesome. But then you that's a really good answer, and it makes sense to me why you did well. Then you went on to study your BCom marketing degree. While you're studying, did the opportunity to model or do pageantry come up at all, and when did you start taking pageantry seriously?
Okay, so it's similar story with how Mr. South Africa came about as well. So I was signed to an agency, closer to the end of high school, going into Bosnia. So again, how it works is it was more on the commercial side of things. So, they'll obviously assign you to different jobs, etc., with different companies, different campaigns, etc. But the pageantry thing, so what happened is after I won Mr. Stellenberg, people would just make a joke. They'd be like, now that you've done Mr. Stellenberg, one day you must go for Mr. South Africa. But for me, because it was just like I did it, I was like, okay, cool, whatever, dude, cool. Then there was a friend of mine. So she was very involved in the pageantry world, Tiffany. So she'd be like, you must go for Mr. South Africa. And I was like, Tiffany, relax. So what would happen is, I remember she messaged me in my first year of university, and she was like, I think you should enter. And for me, my thought process was, look here, I've got this opportunity to study, get my degree, and I understood that it's not also necessarily about what the platform can give to me, but it's also about what's the value that I can add to the platform. And for me, my thought process, so at that time, it was just to kind of be like, just get her to keep quiet for 3-4 years. I was like, Tiffany, can I please just finish my degree first? And I'll do it. I'll consider it when I've graduated. And I thought she would forget about it. I graduate, and I remember she sent me a post, and she's like, well, you said
you're done now, and this is what you said.
And I was like,
kept you at your word.
You see what I mean? I was like, you know what? Let me give it a go. And again, same story. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna give it my all. And yeah, I entered, and it was quite a process. It's an 8-9 month process up until you get to the finals. Interesting enough, in the top 30, I almost pulled out.
This is Mr. South Africa.
Yes, I almost pulled out, and I think I've shared this once on a radio interview. I've never shared it before. And as to the reason why I almost pulled out, and again, at that time there's a lot going on in my life. I just graduated, I was finding my feet, etc. Now you've got this responsibility of competing in this pageant, and as with every important decision in my life, I pray about it and I trust God to lead me and to guide me. If I have peace about it, I do it. If I don't have peace about it, you know, I trust that most people, they refer to it as a gut feeling. You know, I believe it's the leading of the Holy Spirit. And I remember, you know, with everything going in the top 30, I was like, you know what, there's a lot going on, and now this added responsibility. And I was literally about to type out my, you know, message of like, thank you so much for the opportunity, but due to everything that's just going on, I believe I'm gonna step aside and maybe I'll look at going at it another year. And I remember sitting there and, you know, just praying about it, and, you know, I was led to Proverbs 3, you know, where it makes reference to, you know, trust me and lean not on your own understanding, and then I'll direct your steps. And at that moment, I was like, well, look here, my understanding says I need to relax, just forget about this pandemic. You see what I mean? And I was like, and it's like, and the leading was just like, keep on going, trust me, I understand everything that's going on now, but just trust me and keep on going. And I did, and if I had pulled out, the outcome wouldn't have been what it was, being in the competition. And yeah, I ended up winning. You know, I was, and to this day, you know, I'm still the youngest title holder in the history of the competition. And it goes to show that sometimes, you know, we face what we face, we go through what we go through, but it's also very important to understand that in our challenges, in the realities of life, you know, God is there with us, and He leads us and He guides us, because again, you know, a lot of times we trust God for something, we get a promise from God, and then we have to go through a process. And we don't understand that, you know, yes, the promise looks like a certain way, but what the promise and the process looks like are two different things. And that's where trusting God comes in, is, you know, it's like, you know what, God, understand that, you know, what the promise that you gave me doesn't look like what I'm going through right now, but I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to have faith that you're going to lead me and you're going to guide me and you're going to get me to the outcome that you promised me.
Amen. You know, when I came into this chat, I thought I had a few answers, but I have more questions now than answers the longer you chat. The first question that comes up with what you are saying now is, then when did the agency come into the picture now, the modeling agency? Because there was you never had plans to do this. And then all of a sudden there's a modeling agency. Now, at which did the modeling agency come after you had done the Mr. Stellenberg competition? Or I'm just trying to get clarity now, because there is now a modeling agency, which is probably why the guys thought, let's push Ntando's name.
So the modeling agency came shortly before Mr. Stellenberg, and the reason for that, let me explain. So I think that's why it's important to have people who can lead you and guide you, and because, you know, I always like to use mentors and people lead you and guide people ahead of you as mirrors. And I heard a statement when I was a lot younger, where it's like, you know, the people you surround yourself are mirrors. So it's very important to be intentional about who you surround yourself with. And you know, in this conversation, what the person was saying is that if, for example, you look at someone which we'll most likely all know, Cristiano Ronaldo, to him, what he wakes up and does every single day, that's normal. But it's when he steps out and people are like, you know, and again, no, I'm not comparing myself to Cristiano Ronaldo.
It's a good example.
It's an example. You see what I mean? So again, it's the people that are close to him that, you know, say, man, like, you did that. And also when he steps, you know, wrongly, they can be like, yo, I think you should have gone differently about that. And again, the importance about that is that, you know, those people are important, because whether you know, get things wrong, sometimes when you get things right, they can be honest with you, and they can lead you and they can guide you. So for example, with me, thanks to Goka again, I never realized, I was well spoken. To me, it was just like, oh, this is it's normal, if I can put it. And people were like, man, you're so well spoken, man, like, and all that. And the person that actually convinced me to join the agency and eventually reached out was, I was more involved on the commercial side of things, if I can put it that way. So adverts and all that kind of stuff. So I'd go for castings, and it was more on that side of things, and that was on just advice and suggestion of something. They were like, dude, look here, you're young, you're well spoken, you look like you can speak in front of a camera, go for it, if I can put it that way. So that's how that came by, just before that time. Then obviously by chance, my friends thought they were funny, Mr. Stellenberg, and yeah, the rest is history.
No, it's incredible. And from that, it just emphasizes the importance of having people around you, and that's something that you value as well. And they don't necessarily only act as mirrors, but also in your story, there's people that saw something in you, something that you maybe didn't particularly see on your own, and if it wasn't for them, maybe wouldn't have seen it, maybe. So winning, and you said you're still the youngest, you still hold that that bragging right of being the youngest. What did winning Mr. South Africa do for your confidence and how people perceived you, how people saw you?
I'd say it was, it was a validation of what happens when you work hard and you commit to something and you see it through.
Yeah.
As I made reference, I almost pulled out in the top 30.
Yeah.
And it was really just an affirmation of, when things get tough, trust God and keep going, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
And in terms of, for me, I'm really grateful because, I had a great upbringing. My parents taught me well. My parents, led me to, getting to know God and really my relationship with God. So in terms of like people's perception and identity, that's always been an integral part in terms of, how people perceive me and how people look at me. Because for me, everything I've achieved, that's just what it was. It was an achievement. The foundation and the basis of it was, I am who God says I am. And that might sound like cliche, etc., etc. But again, like for example, I remember when I won, and now I started interacting with certain people and etc. And one thing which a lot of people would say, it'd be like, man, you're so humble. And for me, I wouldn't necessarily call it humility. I would call it awareness, if I can put it that way. And what I mean by that is, again, like I make reference to the part where I almost pulled out a top 30, is that I knew that getting through that period and getting to that outcome of being crowned, according to what I wanted to do, I wanted to call it quits, but it was the grace of God that sustained me through that time and got me to that outcome. So whenever I get to a certain platform, I get to a certain place, it's, that achievement or that platform doesn't become my identity. It's an achievement, and that's what it is. And all achievements are, they're just a reflection of, someone's diligence, someone's hard work, and someone's commitment to see something through and get to the outcome, that they pursued at the start of that process.
I like that you mentioned that. What other things did it teach you besides diligence and hard work?
It taught me, that things don't just happen. Things don't just happen, because I remember in that year there were a lot of campaigns, a lot of things that I really wanted to do, and I thought that, okay, now I've won, things are just going to happen. It taught me that if you want something to happen, you need to get up, and be willing to make it happen. And a lot of the times that, you know, you always think you're going to get the support you need from at that time, you know, business, because to get programs, to help people, it requires resource. Sometimes resources you don't have at your disposal. But before those resources can come and you can help the people you want to help, you need to put an initiative. You need to show the people that you want to buy in, you want to, you know, contribute, that, you know, I believe in what I'm doing, and if they're going to believe in it, you're going to have to show them that you believe in it, because it's your belief that gets them to buy in, and it's your belief that gets them, you know, to make their contribution. So again, I think it was invaluable to learn that things don't just happen, and there's a lot that happens behind the scenes, and what sometimes people see at the outcome is just, it's 20%. It's 20%.
Tip of the iceberg.
You see what I mean?
Now, it's great that you're speaking about hard work, and now you just mentioned that what we see is not necessarily everything, right? And when people think of pageantry and they think of Mr. South Africa or Mrs. South Africa, they can't comprehend or understand what is the hard work that's entailed in that process. Could you give myself and some people just a basic step-by-step journey of what it looks like for that 9 month period of being in such a high value pageant?
All right, so the process, it's again, first things and foremost, you're a brand ambassador. You need to realize that yes, you are who you are, but when you do things and you say things, you need to be cognizant of the fact that you no longer represent yourself. First and foremost, you represent the country, and secondly, you represent different organizations which are a part of this process. So again, the crux and the core of it was a lot of community projects. I mean, yes, there was the brand aspect, but again, and I'll touch on that briefly, is that, you know, but the community aspect. So for example, in the inaugural year, there was an organization which we partnered with at the time as Mrs. South Africa, which was known as Prime Stars, and they started a program. So they've done a lot of great work since the 90s. You know, I remember at the time when I got involved, I mean, they'd helped and really impacted the lives of over 1 million young people in South Africa. And that, for me, I was really privileged to be a part of the organization, to be an ambassador for, you know, that specific program which they started at that time. So the program was known as What About the Boys? It's still ongoing, you know, and for me, what really drew me to that, for example, is it wasn't just a PR stunt. It's not just a media day, one day we out. How Prime Stars structures a lot of their programs is, you know, they want to influence an entire generation. So for example, the cycle of What About the Boys program is a 15-year cycle. Every single year they reach 15,000 young boys in primary school, and, you know, they educate them on aspects such as, you know, what does it mean to be a man, you know, because a lot of these guys, so what would happen is we'd have a screening, we would then go through a 6-week program where we mentor these young children. So we'd go to the communities they live in, and within a safe space, you know, they would be able to ask us certain questions, you know, discuss certain challenges back home. It's like, hey man, again, the only point of reference I have to life is I see my dad beating my mom every single day, like, and to me that's the reality, or that's normal, if I can put it that way. And then again, yes, we do our part to intervene in that situation and to help, etc. But then, you know, through the program that was, you know, outlined, and a lot of research goes into it, we then start to take these young men through, you know, no, that's not the way to go about it. You see what I mean? And you know, that's not what being a man is all about. And in addition to that, you know, these guys, we used to meet at their schools, if I can put it that way, and we'd also just do our part in terms of ensuring that, you know, we give them the right tools to be able to, you know, go through that process. there was an array of programs which Prime Stars offers, and to this day still offers as well, such as, you know, skills development programs, such as, you know, mathematics extra classes, physics, etc., etc. I mean, there's also a program there's on financial literacy, which is especially within, you know, again, me, someone who grew up in the township, it's not a financial literacy or just understanding the concept of finance is not something which is openly discussed at the dinner table.
No.
So again, you know, for me it was a great privilege to be a part of that, where we, you know, meaningfully invested into the lives of about 13 to 15,000 young people every single year. And even this year, same story. You know, they go through the program, you know, and 15,000 young people from different schools across the country, they're a part of the program. You know, they partner with corporate South Africa. Organizations really get involved because it's making a meaningful impact. And the whole game plan of it is that after 15 years, they've changed an entire generation of young men, and those young men are going to go into society with those values, with that knowledge, and with the relevant skills that they need, you know, to go out into the world. And then, yeah, I mean, from the brand point of view, is that, you know, you're a brand ambassador, so it'll be a thing of when brands are hosting events, you're expected to be there. You know, when brands are showing new product or showcasing new product, you're expected to be there, and you're expected to carry yourself in a way which aligns with the values of the brand, you know, in a respectful manner. You know, you don't just, and for me, like I said, I was very intentional to learn and to glean from you know, the organization itself, because one thing I told myself was like, you know, hey, a lot of people, I'm sure, when I got into it, was like, you know, this young guy, we'll see where he goes, we'll see what he does, because, you know, the perception. But I think, you know, grateful for the values that were instilled in me. I was like, okay, you know what, this is new for me, and I'm just here to learn, to glean. So all the guidance that I can get, I'm gonna take it in, and I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna apply it in terms of, you know, how I conduct myself throughout this year to ensure that, you know, we can make the biggest difference possible within the short space of time, and also as well that I can best represent, you know, my country, as well as the organizations which are behind me and are supporting me on this journey.
Okay, so that basically had a job whilst you're, like, the time and the effort that you needed to put into that, it was like, okay, you literally have this job that you have to give your all to, but on the other hand, there's, you know, this thing that you're doing as well, or your life, your normal everyday life, right? Okay, and then lastly, quickly for me, what do you think are some of the differences between a Mr. South Africa and a Mrs. South Africa? Like, you know, I am fortunate enough to have had a friend who got far in the Miss South Africa journey, and so I do have a kind of understanding of how it is in the background, and how it's a sisterhood and etc. Do you think there are any differences, and if so, what would be some of the differences between a Miss South Africa, a Mrs. South Africa, and a Mr. South Africa? You know, I'm just trying to see how is the pageantry world in guy world, you know? Yeah.
So I'd say, you know, drawing comparisons between Mr. South Africa and Miss South Africa, you know, first and foremost, you know, Mr. South Africa, I'll acknowledge it's not as big of a platform as Miss South Africa. And that's not a negative thing per se, because, you know, it's two different organizations which, you know, aim to achieve two different things, if I can put it that way. Again, you know, with Mr. South Africa, in my experience, you know, I learned that first and foremost, you know, this is about you being an ambassador, being a representation or representative, if I can put it that way, of you know, what it means to be a good male role model to younger people in society, if I can put it that way. And you know, with Mr. South Africa, for example, it's what you make of the platform. You know, it's what do you want this year of your life to be remembered as, and what's the impact that you want to make, if I can put it that way. Whereas, you know, from observation is that Miss South Africa, for example, you know, it's you slot in, you align, and again, it's not negative or positive, but it's just those are the realities of the different platforms. And again, they aim to achieve two different things, in the sense of the one's got its objectives and the other one's got its objectives. But I'd say that the biggest distinction is the fact that within my year of Miss South Africa, yes, the organization had plans in terms of, you know, what they wanted to achieve and the objectives, and again, you know, I respected those and I honored those, etc. But for me, it was a stepping stone. Whereas where Miss South Africa would be different is that, you know, you kind of get this celebrity status, if I can put it that way, because it is a bigger platform, naturally so. But with Mr. South Africa, it functions as a stepping stone, you know, in terms of if you want to enter into a certain space, it's a platform you can step onto, and it gives you access, it gives you credibility to be able to move into those directions, if I can put it that way.
Amazing. No, it was a good question, because I'm sure you worked with good guys and great gents, but you know, you're around a couple of other dudes who are competing. So you didn't end up in a no scuffle or anything like that.
Nothing like that. Nothing like that.
I'm guessing that it was the guys are decent unks, and it doesn't get that far as to you guys coming up in arms. But what I wanted to ask you, which was something you mentioned about the ambassadorship, the challenge of taking that on. How did you take that on, being not only a brand ambassador of the different brands, but just an ambassador for South Africa? How did you take that on?
I had to come to terms really quickly with, you know, the responsibility that it came with, and it taught me a very important lesson in professionalism, understanding that, you know, you have a responsibility, and to honor that responsibility at all times, because again, sometimes you get to places, you're tired, you just want to be like, hey, you know, guys.
But you were keen to take it on.
You see what I mean? Exactly. So it really taught me a lesson in responsibility, and in respecting and honoring the platform and different people, if I can put it that way, because yes, you might feel a certain way, and there'll be a time and a space for you to you know, for wellness, to look after yourself, etc. That's one thing I'm really grateful to the organization for, is that because they understood that, they gave me that support that I needed, if I can put it that way. And again, I mean, in addition to that, it really taught me a lesson in not everything is about you, and life is a lot longer than 1 year, if I can put it that way. So everything that I did during that year, and every single, you know, plan, etc., I was always mindful of when I leave this platform, am I going to leave it in a better state than when I found it? And it was a great platform before I got there, but am I going to leave it at a greater state, if I can put it that way? And also just, you know, how am I gonna, you know, ensure that beyond this, you know, I can continue to add value to other people, and I can continue to enter into a certain space and be a person of value beyond just this year of reign, if I can put it. As I said, a year, I mean, life is a lot longer than a year. Life is a lot longer than one achievement. And I think sometimes a lot of, you know, guys that maybe step into the space of the platform, you know, they think this is the be it end all. But I think it's very important to realize, you know, this is just a moment in your life. You know, it's a season that's going to pass, but how do you use this season of your life to first and foremost, you know, grow, to learn, and to develop as a person? And how do you use this season of your life to become a person of value and to be able to add value at a later stage, or to take you to the next stage of your life where you add value in that area.
No, amazing. And I think you would have done it. You did a great job, and just in everything that you do, because of the recurring. Not only because I'm hearing you say now I know it, like you're keen to learn, you're keen to apply yourself. What am I gonna get from it? And I think that's why you are successful in your reign, and just you are successful in everything that you do as well. So from the outside we see the glitz and glamour. It's nice. You click on social media and it looks like a dream. What is the hardest part about it all? Even if it's one.
Okay, let me think. I would say there was a lot of things that I would have wanted to go my way, a lot of opportunities, etc. But I believe probably the hardest part and one of the most important lessons I learned is to accept and to have peace when things don't go your way, or when you don't have the outcome that you were working towards or you were hoping for. Because yes, there were certain successes throughout that year, but there's things which I pursued, I worked on, etc., and the outcome just didn't it didn't go
that's tough.
my way. And I think that was tough. That was tough because and it's something I had to learn very quickly. And that's where I learned that lesson of life is a lot longer than 1 year.
Yeah.
You know, life is a lot longer than, you know, this specific achievement.
Yeah.
And it was in those moments that I learned that. And I had to just take a step back and be like, look here, yes, you're here now, but think long term, think beyond this. Use these lessons to get better, use these lessons to become more of a person of value, because again, these are all going to be tools that you're going to be able to use in different spaces, you know, beyond this, and once you get past this period of your life.
Amazing. And what about being in the public eye so much, and how do you handle people's expectations and all of that?
I believe an important part of it is just knowing who you are. And that's why I also made reference to, again, you know, platforms are just that, achievements are just that. You know, they shouldn't define who you are. The foundation and the basis of who I am, first and foremost, you know, it's being a child of God, and that's my identity. You know, that's the foundation on which I live my life, if I can put it that way. And again, you know, like I said, a lot of people would say in that space, you know, yeah, man, you're such a humble guy, all that kind of stuff. And it's neither here nor there. You know, like I said, I don't see it as humility. I saw it as awareness, understanding that, you know, everything that I have and every opportunity that I've had access to is as a result and a product of the grace of God. So that when I get to the achievement, when I get to the platform, you know, God gets all the glory. And again, you know, even when I interacted with people during that time, you know, I always understood that respect people and acknowledge people, because every single person has value. And value is not in our achievements. You know, the only person that can put value on us is God. And if you want to know how much value God puts on you, you know, it's Jesus. And that value was, you are worth dying for, if I can put it that way. So again, I believe, you know, my father was very, very stringent on that. He was like, respect will take you places where your skill, your gifting, your education, your talent will not even bring you close to, if I can put it that way. And I mean, even to this day, you know, there's people I have access to, there's people I interact with, and the main reason why I still have that access is because of, you know, how I respected them, how I interacted with them when I had the opportunity to be in their space and to be in their environment. So again, I'll just say, I really am grateful for my upbringing, what was instilled in me, and the people that have guided me throughout my life, and just to really be intentional to, no matter who you interact with, and they might not necessarily have had the opportunity to achieve what you've been able to achieve or be in the space that you've been able to just always respect them and, to see them because they are valuable. And it's not for me or anyone else or society to put value on their lives, it's the God that created them that puts value on their life. And the fact that God created them and they're here, that is enough. That means they have value.
Incredible. Quite a journey, and I can imagine all the dynamics of being in that space, and just the different chapters also in your life in itself that you went through. You were resilient through it. You are quite disciplined. You lived out the values that you learned not only from your grand but your old man as well, and I'm sure your mother as well. Just a question before I let you go. What does being unshakable mean to you?
Being unshakable to me is obviously being steadfast on what you want to achieve, what you're pursuing, but as I've made reference to throughout this conversation, understanding that the outcome is going to look nothing like the process that you have to go through. And in the midst of the process, and when things look nothing like the outcome, it's in being steadfast, being committed, being willing to take responsibility, and seeing things through to the place where you get to the outcome that you set out to get to when you started.
Just you push through it all, and you don't waver. You are persistent. You are just unshakable.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, that's the reality of life. If again, I haven't lived that long. I'm 27, but I think one thing I've learned in my 27 years of life is things happen. Bad things happen to good people.
Yep.
And it's very important to understand that life happens to all of us. The only difference between the people that get to a certain place and get to an outcome, which people admire or which people are inspired by, encouraged by, is they stick it out and they see through the bad days to get through to a place where they achieve what they want to achieve and they get to the outcome that they wanted to get to. I think it's very important. I believe, something which someone I got some respect to, is that they said your value to other people are the battles you've overcome. So again, sometimes when you're going through what you're going through, it's not just about you and it's not just for you, but it's to be that value to other people who might go through a similar experience. And when they look at your journey, they're like, you know what? Yes, I'm going through what I'm going through, but if he could make it through, I'm going to use that. I'm going to add that to my toolbox and I'm going to stick it out. And if he could do it, I believe I can too.
I love that. Like I said, I had so many more questions, and maybe there must be a part 2. We'll chat about it, or we'll negotiate and try twist your arm to have another one. Lastly, are we going for Mr. South Africa, the title again?
Well, no. And reason being, it's not negative. Again, there's a very important statement. Pastor Aiden made a statement. I believe it must have been at a leaders meeting or business breakfast, and he made reference to healthy things grow and growing things change. So I had that opportunity to do that, but the reality of it is there's more to life that I want to achieve. There's other things that I want to conquer and pursue, etc., etc. And a reflection of something being healthy is it grows, and if something is growing, it changes, if I can put it that way. Not in the sense of, its foundation, but just in terms of the different areas of life it expands into, it changes. Like, for example, it'd be very strange if a child was a toddler for 30 years. It'd be very awkward, if I can put it that way. And I mean, we see it all around us. Life evolves. There's new things. There's new technologies, etc., etc. So, unfortunately, not. I mean, I've had the opportunity to take part in Mr. South Africa. I was offered the opportunity to go and represent South Africa at Mr. Universe in LA. That's not something I pursued. It's an opportunity which was given to me. And again, it was an honor. I accepted it. And yeah, I mean, I believe that I've done my part in terms of participating within that space. I am still involved here and there. I still get invited to pageants, etc., etc. But in terms of from a participation point of view, I believe that going to LA and representing South Africa at Mr. Universe, that was it for me from a pageantry point of view. I think I'm looking forward to pursuing other avenues and other, areas of life and conquering and being successful within those.
Nah, awesome. We didn't even get to Mr. Universe and you going up to LA. But like I said, maybe a part 2, we'll see. But Ntando, I just want to say thank you, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
really appreciate it. Thank you.
Really, I think there was a lot of value added to the Unshakeable podcast, and particularly because of this episode. I think your gran would definitely be proud of the man you've become, and I think I'm pretty certain that your folks are quite stoked to be part of your journey as well. But yeah, in a nutshell, thank you so much, and I think it was a really valuable episode.
Thank you, Shakes. Really appreciate it.
Unshakeable family, thank you so much for tuning in. I think there's a lot of takeaways from today's episode. Having people around you that you can use as mirrors, I think it's very valuable. And with the people around you, there's so much that they can add to you as well, and see things that you may not see in yourself. So I think it's a very important takeaway, and that's the only one that I'll just point out here at the end, which I think is a valuable one. But I'm really grateful to have you in the community. Please remember to subscribe, share the video, like it, comment, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Unshakeable. Cheers.